The story started by introducing Haruto, a third-year junior high student who shut himself in his room after suffering from bullying. He had already lost hope in his future. However, he was suddenly summoned by a goddess, who informed him that he had been chosen to be reincarnated. Haruto was surprised, and he wondered if he actually died inside his room. The goddess informed him that magic would be the most important thing in his new world, so she would grant him overpowered skills so he would be able to live his second life to the fullest. Hearing this, Haruto hoped that his second life would just be nice and quiet, where he could just watch anime and play games all day long. Then he asked the goddess to reincarnate him, excitedly. Haruto was surprised that he had to start all the way from infancy. He was reincarnated as a child of royalties. Afterwards, his father, the king, ordered his servant to start Haruto's magical assessment. After starting the assessment, the crystal that the mage was holding shone brightly. So the king was certain that his child with the Flash Princess, who had killed the Demon King, would surely have a high maximum mono level. He was expecting at least level 50. However, when the light subsided, the crystal ball showed level 2 instead, and the mage added that Haruto doesn't possess any elements as well and he could only use barrier magic. The king couldn't believe this, and both he and his wife agreed that words about it couldn't get out, as this would cause outrage among their subjects. So they agreed that they would announce that their child, Prince Reinhart, had died during childbirth. Haruto couldn't believe that he was about to die again just after getting reincarnated. He realized that even in this world, he's also surrounded by awful people. The mage thought that it was too much, but the king commanded his subordinates to dispose his child in a faraway forest. The goddess panicked after seeing Haruto's situation. She realized that she forgot to give him an element, and his current world's measuring devices are limited to 2 digits, and they only showed level 2, as they couldn't show Haruto's real level, which is 1002. Haruto is left alone in the middle of a forest, and he can't do anything because currently, he is just an infant. However, he remembered that the mage mentioned that he could use barrier magic. Haruto gave it a try, and he was surprised at how easy it was. Not only could he manipulate the size, shape, and movement of the barrier, but he also realized that the only limit of his ability was his imagination. Haruto used his barrier on himself in order to float around freely. However, he was suddenly attacked by a giant wolf, but luckily it couldn't bite through his barrier. After realizing that it couldn't hurt him, he started fighting back, but the large number of barriers that he had thrown at the wolf couldn't hurt it either, and it only angered the creature. After seeing that his first attack was useless, Haruto used his barrier to pluck out trees and throw them at the wolf. Although it pushed the wolf back, it wasn't enough to damage the wolf either. Seeing this, Haruto used his barrier again. But this time he used it to levitate a huge piece of land, and he was planning to bury the wolf with it. Because of this, the wolf suddenly started using human language, and he surrendered to Haruto right away. But the wolf was almost buried before Haruto realized that the voice came from it. After stopping their fight, the wolf explained that she was planning to eat Haruto to replenish her mana, but she didn't expect him to be so strong. However, Haruto couldn't respond to the wolf because he couldn't talk, although the wolf noticed his mature behavior and logical reasoning. Haruto was troubled by this situation, so he tried attaching his barrier at his throat. And he actually managed to talk normally because of this. The wolf asked him again about his identity, but he thought it would be hard to pronounce his name in this world, so he introduced himself as Haruto. He also told the wolf that he was abandoned due to his low mana level limit, but she couldn't understand it because she could see that his mana exceeded the human limit, and she even mistook him for the reincarnation of the Demon King. And Haruto really introduced himself as the Demon King. The wolf surrendered her life to Haruto, but he refused to kill her, saying that it was fine as long as she stopped attacking him from now on. The wolf was moved by his kindness and swore that she would never attack him again. After this, Haruto bid her farewell while calling her Flay, but because he gave her a name, they accidentally formed a pact. Haruto was trying to explain that it wasn't his intention, but Flay wasn't listening at all. And Haruto suddenly descended to the ground, looking weak. Flay worriedly asked him what was wrong, and he answered that he needed some breast milk. Hearing this, Flay transformed into a human girl. Haruto felt shy seeing her naked body, so he used his barrier to give her some clothes, which made her even sexier. After calming down, Flay noticed that someone was approaching. She asked Haruto if she should kill them, but he told her to ask what they were after instead. Then Haruto used his barrier as a way to communicate with Flay covertly. Flay asked the stranger's purpose for coming into the forest. He answered that he had come for Haruto, but Flay refused immediately. She explained that he had become her master, although Haruto still hasn't agreed to it. The stranger told Flay that Haruto is the son of his relative, and he came to save him while bringing out some breast milk at the same time. Seeing this, Haruto asked Flay to get the milk for him, but she cursed at the stranger instead, saying that he offered the milk knowing that she couldn't produce the milk herself. At the same time, Haruto was begging Flay to accept the milk as he was dying from hunger. Flay asked why he was determined to save Haruto, so the stranger explained that he and his wife had lost their child once. And he also said that Haruto was abandoned because of his lack of potential. But he doesn't care about that and he wants to give Haruto a chance to save her life. Flay was touched by his story, so they finally agreed that she would just come with them and serve Haruto as his personal attendant. Before leaving, the stranger destroyed Haruto's carrier and poured some blood into it in order to fake his death. Afterwards, Haruto asked for milk again, but Flay insisted that the only milk he was drinking was her breast milk. 9 years had passed since Margrave Gold had adopted Haruto, and although he was planning to leave after getting some milk, but because of their kindness, he couldn't help but stay instead. However, he was troubled that his cute little sister seemed to hate him. Flay had already adapted well to working as their personal attendant, and Haruto is jealous that she really gets along with his little sister. Although she is still focused on taking care of Haruto, he asks Flay to spend some time with his sister as well. His mother noticed that Haruto was troubled that his little sister was really shy around him, so she consoled Haruto by saying that his sister just doesn't know how to act around boys at her age. However, Haruto panicked instead. He wondered if Char had noticed that he was actually a middle-aged man who was around his 30s. Seeing that Haruto is being dramatic, his mom suggested that he show Char that he is a reliable big brother. However, since he is bad at socializing, it is even more troublesome for him. She also suggested to Haruto that he should stop holing up in his room and spend more time with Char outside, while adding that she would do everything so Haruto and Char could get along better. After returning to his room, Haruto is thinking of leaving the estate again. However, he is certain that Char would hate him even more since there is no way Flay would stay if he decided to leave. During these past 9 years, Haruto studied barrier magic as much as he could, because he was trying to make a copy of himself that would take his place once he decided to leave. However, although he could perfectly copy his own appearance, but it couldn't talk or move on its own, and he realized that he would also need to make a copy of Flay for Char. At the same time, his father suddenly called him from outside his room. His father wanted to teach him swordsmanship. He could tell that Haruto hated it just from his expression, so he explained that Haruto needed to grow his skills on something else since his mana level was low. He also asked if there was something that Haruto wanted to do. Haruto almost said that he just wanted to hole up in his room, but he said that he was researching ancient magic instead. His father was happy hearing this. He's glad that Haruto is actually doing something worthwhile when he's stuck in his room. However, before Haruto could leave, he still asked him to try swordsmanship first. Afraid to get hurt and fully aware of his father's strength, Haruto used his barrier to protect himself before attacking his father. His father was surprised by his attack, and he barely managed to dodge it. Afterwards, he told Haruto to try dodging his attack next, and he was even more shocked as Haruto easily dodged his attack, which shouldn't be possible for people below level 30. Then it is revealed that Haruto made a 3-digit measuring device to check his level again, but it is still level 2. And he didn't think that his level would be 4 digits since the highest recorded level for a human is level 77. So he just helplessly accepted that he really has level 2 magic with no attributes aside from his barrier. The father and son continued their training, and they didn't realize that Char was curiously watching them. Because of their swordsmanship training, Haruto's father thought that he could be a demi-demon. But his mother didn't believe it, so his father had to explain that there had been people who were involved with demons in the past, and it could also explain why a demon like Flay is willingly following Haruto. His mother still doesn't want to believe it, and his father also agreed and added that whatever happens, they just want Haruto to remain happy. Char heard everything. She was certain that her brother was not a demon, but something else. While inside his room, Haruto realized that his father seemed to be busy. Although he was happy that he didn't have to do any swordsmanship training, he was still wondering what the reason was. At the same time, he heard the commotion outside the castle, and after using his magic, he saw the large number of soldiers receiving treatments outside. His father told him that because the thieves have been attacking their area often recently, they decided to head to their base after getting enough information. And although they were well prepared and careful, they still suffered because they were desperate to not let anyone get away. And this demoralized the soldiers, including his father. His father asked him to go back home, worried that the sight might be too harsh for Haruto since he's still so young. Although Haruto obeyed his father without saying anything, it was obvious that he was enraged by the situation, and it was confirmed when he scolded Flay for mocking the soldiers for losing. Afterwards, Haruto used his barrier to heal the injuries of the soldiers. His father couldn't understand what had happened, while the soldiers rejoiced after noticing that their injuries had healed. Haruto went to sleep after returning to the castle, and he was surprised to see Flay completely quiet outside of his room. He was talking to Flay, but she wasn't answering at all, so he realized that it was because he told her to shut up earlier in the day. Although he thought that it was stupid, he apologized while telling Flay that she could speak again. And then Flay apologized for being rude, so Haruto realized that she still didn't understand why he was upset. Using his magic, Haruto checked every part of the estate to look for the thieves. He immediately found the group responsible for the attack on his father. However, he realized that there were normal soldiers among them working as spies. Because of this, Haruto decided to destroy them thoroughly. Haruto used his barrier to fly and travel to the thieves' location, and Char saw it from outside her room. The thieves were celebrating. They were in high spirits after defeating Margrave Gold and his soldiers. They were so satisfied after seeing the flustered look of the rumbling Earth's warhammer while his soldiers suffered in their hands. However, they were shocked when Haruto suddenly joined their conversation. They were quick to take out their weapons, but Haruto immediately used his barrier to stop their movements, and he threw one of the thieves against the wall to shut him up. The two other thieves were visibly afraid after seeing their companion embedded in the wall. Then Haruto asked them to answer his questions while telling them the consequences if they tried to lie. After interrogating the thieves, he found out that they were actually soldiers from the Empire, and they were planning to invade the kingdom while pretending to be thieves in order to cause chaos from the inside. And they also informed Haruto that they have accomplices, so they managed to infiltrate the kingdom easily even though the borders are guarded. Haruto concluded that it is only possible if their accomplice has the same authority as his father, and he also wondered if someone inside the kingdom is trying to kill his father. The soldiers begged for their lives after spilling everything they knew. However, Haruto didn't forget that they tried to kill his father, and he asked Flay to burn the entire fort, including the soldiers. Although he doesn't know about the soldiers or the conflicts within the kingdom, he wouldn't forgive anyone who interfered with his business. Then he sent an anonymous letter explaining the fort's situation to his father. The next day, one of Margrave Gold's subordinates informed him about the letter, and they confirmed that everything written in it about the Fort of Thieves was true. Margrave Gold couldn't understand how the Empire soldiers managed to infiltrate the kingdom through the borders. Then he asked his subordinate to find out who the sender of the letter was. Although he knew they weren't ordinary thieves, he didn't expect that they were actually soldiers from the Empire. Because of this, he was certain that the thing he was worried about was about to happen. Char asked who defeated the bad guys, and although he didn't mention Flay, he was certain that Flay was behind it, as she was the only person he knew who could manipulate fire, and she even has influence over the demons in the area. Char asked to leave after hearing this, and she told her father that she remembered she had something to do. Char remembered seeing her brother and Flay fly away the previous night, and she couldn't understand what her brother really was. Char came to Flay, asking if she had two brothers. Flay couldn't understand her question, and she even wondered if something was wrong with Char's head. However, Char explained that she saw Haruto and Flay flying the previous night, which should be impossible considering Haruto's low mana. She also added that after seeing them, she went to check Haruto's room and saw him sleeping soundly without his usual scary aura. Flay praised Char for noticing Haruto's power, and then she explained that Haruto has always had immeasurably high magic powers since he was born, and even demons like her couldn't reach the same level. Char asked who her brother actually was. Flay admitted that she knew, but she also told Char that she could not say it before saying that if she continued fussing over little things, she'd never get bigger like her. Flay informed Haruto about her conversation with Char, which explains why Char has been keeping an eye on him recently. Because of this, he decided to create a barrier that would alert him to what Char was doing and where she was. Then Flay also asked why Haruto has a clone, but he didn't answer her question. Char didn't stop following Haruto, so he finally decided to ask why she was observing him. However, Char ran away before he could even ask his question. For the next few days, Char followed him while he was in training, while he was having a normal conversation, and even while he was taking a bath. During their meal, his parents informed him that his mom and Char would be attending a festival in place of his father. After hearing this, Haruto asked if Flay should go with them. However, Flay is currently busy visiting the demons around the area, and threatening them so they won't attack the towns. Because of this, he realized how helpful Flay actually is. At the same time, he noticed that Char was still watching his actions. While he was sleeping, alarms from his barrier suddenly went off, indicating that Char was in danger. The Empire soldiers ambushed Char and Natalia while they were on their way to the festival. The soldiers guarding them are helpless against the Empire soldiers, so Natalia had no choice but to run away while carrying Char. The soldiers used their magic to attack Natalia, and although she managed to block most of their attack, one of them managed to hit her above her ankle. At the same time, Haruto's barrier suddenly showed up, and Char pointed in the direction where they could escape. After running for a while, Char pointed to the location below the cliff, and Natalia jumped down and used her magic to land at the bottom of the cliff safely. Although Natalia had run out of magic power, they managed to reach a cave where they could hide. However, Natalia was worried that it would still be easy to find them inside the cave, so she asked Char to stay inside while she pretended that she would meet the person who was an ally of justice and was helping them. But in reality, she was planning to distract the soldiers and drag them away from where Char is hiding. After leaving the cave, Natalia noticed that an illusion magic was used to hide the cave entrance. However, the soldiers found her immediately. Natalia thought that she shouldn't become a prisoner of war, so she took out her dagger. She was planning to kill herself before the soldiers could catch her. But before she could kill herself, the dagger suddenly shattered, and she lost consciousness. Haruto was enraged after seeing his mother's situation, and he defeated the soldiers immediately. Afterwards, Haruto carried his mom inside the cave, and he informed Char that their mother was safe. Then he wanted to leave his mother with Char while asking her to wait patiently for help inside the cave with their mother. Char was afraid because of Haruto's aura. However, since Haruto had saved them, she didn't hesitate anymore and called her brother before he could leave. And Haruto unconsciously turned around after hearing his sister. Char asked Haruto if he was an ally of justice. Haruto was confused by her question, and he didn't know what to say because this was the first time that they were having a conversation. Because he didn't know what to do, Haruto just decided to go along with it and tell Char that he was an ally of justice. After hearing this, Char assumed that Haruto's power was used to defeat bad guys. She was amazed at her brother, and she added that she had misunderstood him this whole time. Haruto asked her to keep everything a secret, and Char agreed right away while adding that she would even lie to their father. Haruto felt a little guilty after hearing this, but he told Char that he had to leave to take care of the remaining bad guys outside the cave. Inside the castle, Margrave Gold and Haruto were informed that both Natalia and Char were safe and that Flay was already escorting them home. They were also informed that their escort's injuries had disappeared instantly, similar to how the soldiers' injuries from their fight against the thieves had disappeared. Margrave Gold wanted to thank the person who saved them, but he was certain that their savior didn't want to show himself. He also asked Haruto's opinion on the matter, but he only said that since they were not doing anything bad, they must be friendly. After hearing this, he remembered that Char had told him that their savior is an ally of justice. Then Haruto added that these allies of justice will probably take care of the soldiers of the Empire if they ever return. However, his statement caught Margrave Gold's attention, as he never mentioned that the thieves were actually soldiers of the Empire. So Haruto had to make up some excuse before giving a clue to his father regarding the Empire's accomplice inside the kingdom. Because of this, Margrave Gold thought Haruto seemed too mature for a 9-year-old. Then he mentioned that the vixen had finally stopped holding back. Haruto wondered who the vixen was that his father had mentioned. However, Char suddenly opened the door while calling his father. Margrave Gold immediately hugged his wife and daughter, glad that they were safe. However, Char suddenly jumped to Haruto and hugged him, telling him that she had missed him. Their parents were surprised that they were suddenly really close, wondering what had happened. But Char told them that nothing happened. Their parents were still confused, but Char declared that she loved her brother from now on. Flay was jealous seeing the two, but Haruto is just happy that his sister doesn't hate him anymore, while their parents are happy seeing their children getting along. After getting saved by Haruto, Char is now totally attached to him. He even had to scold her for constantly barging into his room without knocking. Char apologized before hugging him, although she used to do the same even when she hated him. This time she's not avoiding him anymore, and it's the exact opposite, as she likes Haruto so much that he doesn't even know what to do about it. However, Char's presence feels comforting to him, so he doesn't hate it. Char noticed the hologram screen behind Haruto, and she immediately got curious about it. Haruto told her that it was surveillance magic, so Char thought that it was ancient magic. Haruto confirmed, but he remembered that he also told the same lie to his father. Then he added that there isn't any record of this lost magic and that it is difficult to learn. However, Char told him that there are actually records about ancient magic, and she had seen them in their castle's archive, and she offered to lead him there. Haruto was amazed after seeing how big the archive was, and he was surprised that there was actually a place like this in their castle. Char used a ladder and immediately took some books and happily brought them to Haruto. After reading, Haruto found out that ancient magic doesn't have any attributes, so he thought that his barrier magic could actually be regarded as ancient magic. Then Char told him that there are actually a lot of interpretations of ancient magic, but the books she had given him were the ones she found interesting. Haruto was amazed that she could read the books, as there were a lot of difficult words. Char explained that their mother and Flay read the books to her, and she also asked Haruto to read them for her. Haruto agreed, but he was surprised when Char sat on his lap. But she explained that whenever their mom or Flay would read the books to her, she would be sitting on their lap. While reading, Haruto found out that there were gods who could travel between worlds, and he immediately thought that it was similar to anime. Because of this, he missed watching anime, and the only complaint he has for this world is that he can't watch anime anymore. Char got curious after hearing Haruto mention anime, so Haruto explained that anime is when a drawing can talk and move. Haruto thought that Char would be grossed out after seeing him explain anime so passionately. However, Char got excited, and she wanted to see it. Because of this, Haruto worked for 2 weeks to gain access to the internet so Char could watch anime. Char looked excitedly at the screen, thinking that it was the magical tool used to watch anime, and she was amazed after seeing the drawing of the girl move. However, she couldn't understand its language because it was in Japanese, so she asked Haruto to teach him. Haruto thought that it would be difficult, but Char managed to master hiragana and katakana in just 2 hours. After 2 weeks, Char had almost mastered Japanese through watching anime. Haruto realized that Char could be a genius, so he shouldn't be letting her watch just anime all the time. Even though Char looks to be having so much fun watching anime, he needs to be strict. And before she could start another episode, Haruto told her that from now on she could only watch for 3 hours a day while explaining that it is not good for a kid's health. Char tried to argue that she was perfectly healthy, but Haruto still refused sternly, so Char could just accept it while looking depressed. While eating dinner, their parents asked Haruto what they were doing inside his room, as they noticed that Char looked really sleepy. But before Haruto could answer, Char told them that they'd been researching ancient magic. Their mother is happy that Char is helping Haruto with his research, but she asked him to watch over her so she doesn't lose track of time. After their dinner, Char started following Haruto again, so Haruto had to tell her that he wouldn't let her watch more anime even if she continued following him, while also telling her to take a bath and sleep. Char obeyed her brother while holding back her tears. Afterwards, Haruto proceeded to take a bath. However, Char suddenly entered the bathroom, and when Haruto asked what she was doing, she explained that their mom had asked her to join him in the bath. While taking a bath, Char was still talking about anime, so Haruto realized that she had started acting like an otaku as well. Haruto noticed that Char had been staring at him. However, it was because she thought that the royal crest on his chest was an emblem, a proof that he was an ally of justice. After taking a bath, Haruto said goodnight to Char before going back to his room to sleep. But before he could sleep, he noticed that Char was also in his bed, clinging to him while sleeping peacefully. He also noticed that their mother is watching them, happy that her kids are getting along really well, like she had planned. The next day, Margrave Gold gathered his soldiers to subdue the remaining thieves, and Char was still worried because of the previous incident involving the Empire soldiers. Haruto noticed this, so he told Char that this time the thieves were just common folks and their father could handle it on his own. Char wonders why those people chose to become thieves, so Haruto explained that it was due to the power struggles that have started all over their country. Char asked if it was impossible for everyone to just live happily, so Haruto answered that everyone is wishing for it, but it is not easy to achieve. However, Char suddenly asked him to join the battle with his father, thinking that the purpose of his brother's power was to create peace, and she pleaded until he agreed. But he was shocked when she also asked him to transform like she had seen in anime. Haruto couldn't refuse, so he transformed into an adult in a black outfit with a black cloak and mask. He became Zero from Code Geass. Char was totally amazed after seeing this, and she thought that her brother was really cool. While Haruto is feeling embarrassed, Char asks him to bring her with him. However, he sternly refused, so Char looked depressed right away. Seeing this, Haruto used his magic to create a screen where Char could watch his acts, and she was satisfied with this. Although Haruto thought that it was a pain to get involved, he would still do it to make his little sister happy. It didn't take him long to find the thieves' location, and he immediately locked them up with his barrier. Although he could just leave them locked up, Haruto was sure that Char wouldn't be satisfied with just that, so he had no choice but to face the thieves. Haruto introduced himself as an ally of justice before beating up the thieves one by one. Although he couldn't hold back enough to make the thieves last longer, he still made sure that no blood would be shed since Char was watching. At the same time, Margrave Gold arrived with his soldiers, and he realized right away that Haruto had beaten all the thieves by himself. His father introduced himself before asking for Haruto's identity, but because he couldn't think of any name, he introduced himself as Dunoyet. Then Margrave Gold asked Dunoyet if it was him who saved his wife and daughter. Dunoyet pretended that he didn't know about it, so Margrave Gold asked what his goal was instead. Dunoyet didn't know what to say again, so he just told Margrave Gold that he is an enforcer of justice. Haruto was totally embarrassed by what he said, so he flew up and left afterwards. Margrave Gold and his soldiers were totally dumbfounded as they watched him leave. Haruto returned to his room exhausted and still embarrassed. However, Char thought that he was really cool, and she asked when he would be fighting again. And to make Char happy, Haruto continued fighting for justice again and again until he became known as the Black Knight. Haruto looks depressed after every fight, but Char thinks he's cool every time, and he has become her hero. The next day, Haruto was finally successful in making his clone talk. Although it took him months to gather enough information from the library books, he managed to make a copy of a robot after using every scrap of information that he had found. And his copy is so much like him that it pisses him off, but he was still happy that he could just stay inside his room now and use his copy for everything he has to do outside. Char was surprised after seeing the two Haruto, and she couldn't tell which one was her real brother. At the same time, Flay suddenly called Haruto from outside his room, so he decided to put his clone to use and do his work for him. However, his clone is so similar to him that it even refused to go out. Afterwards, Haruto's family had to receive the princess and the prince as they visited their territory. The prince noticed Haruto and Char. He remembered that Haruto is also a son of the royal family and that they are his siblings. Then he started acting rudely towards Margrave Gold, and he was satisfied after Margrave Gold bowed down and apologized to him. Princess Marion scolded her brother for his rude manners. However, the prince also insulted his sister, calling her a tool for the government's use while emphasizing that she's also below him. Haruto stared at the prince, wondering how they raised such a dumb kid. The prince called out Haruto for glaring at him, and he insulted Haruto by calling him a level 2 junk who was adopted from the orphanage. Then he also said that he would teach Haruto a lesson about discipline before asking Haruto to fight him. Margrave Gold thought it was too much, but the prince said that he would hold back, so he had no choice but to agree. Haruto looked troubled, but it was because he thought that his situation was a pain to deal with. However, the prince thought that Haruto was afraid, so he confidently told Haruto that he would hold back. Haruto was intrigued by the prince's confidence, so he checked his level, and he saw that the prince is currently level 9, with the highest level he could reach being level 40. Then he proceeded to check his father's and sister's levels too. However, the prince started attacking him when he noticed that Haruto was looking away. But Haruto easily dodged him, so he told Haruto to stop dodging. Because of this, Haruto used his barrier magic on himself and started receiving the prince's hits while pretending to be in pain. However, the prince wasn't satisfied by this, so he told Haruto to fight back. Hearing this, Haruto started to beat up the prince effortlessly. The princess was surprised after seeing this, so she asked Margrave Gold if Haruto is really a level 2 since his movements are so fast that it should only be possible for someone who has a really high level. Margrave Gold explained that he also doesn't understand, and Haruto also told him that he doesn't understand, so he just accepted that it was the case. At the same time, the prince started chanting, and he cast a fireball at Haruto, but he was surprised when his magic disappeared before it could reach Haruto. He didn't know what happened, but he continued using his fireball at Haruto. Princess Marion stopped the prince from further embarrassing himself, but he argued that something was stopping his magic from reaching Haruto. So Haruto explained that it was his magic, while bringing out the combination of all the fireballs he had received from the prince. The prince finally gave up after seeing this. Haruto sighed in relief that it was finally over, and he headed straight to his room. However, Princess Marion stopped him as she apologized for her brother's rudeness while also asking if Haruto is really level 2. Haruto confirmed it and then headed to his room, but he was wondering if his real parents would look for him after this incident. Inside the castle, Char was using Haruto's surveillance magic to look for suspicious individuals inside their territory, reporting them to Haruto every time. And because of this, he has been busy dealing with these people recently. At the same time, Flay arrived, saying that she had heard everything from Char, so she was asking Haruto to bring her with him every time he goes out to get rid of these suspicious people. Haruto asked if she wasn't busy with her tasks in the castle, so Flay said that she had finished everything. Haruto thought it would be a pain, but he couldn't refuse because Char was excited to see them fight together, and she insisted that he should have a partner who would save him when he was in a pinch, like what she had been seeing in anime. But before leaving, he reminded Flay not to do anything extreme as Char would be watching them. While the thieves were celebrating their harvest, Haruto showed up in his Dark Knight costume, followed by Flay, who introduced herself as Flame Fenrir, the Red Knight. The thieves were confused, they had no idea what was going on, and they didn't know who these masked people were. However, Flay didn't give the thieves a chance to do anything as she used her fire magic to burn them into ashes. Haruto panicked upon seeing this, but he used his barrier to protect the thieves from Flay. After seeing that her attack didn't work, Flay started channeling her magic for a stronger. Flay argued that everything that gets in his way is her enemy before using her fire magic at the thieves again. So Haruto had to trick her by saying that he would land the last blow while asking her to return home. After returning to the castle, Haruto was lying face down in his bed, exhausted. Char thought Haruto and Flay were really cool, but she compared them to watching a comedic duo. Flay felt proud after hearing her praise, but she was still wondering what was blocking her attack. However, she promised that she would do better next time. Haruto thought there wouldn't be a next time, but Char was looking forward to watching their comedic duo act again. While Haruto was thinking that he might have to do it again to make Char happy, Char was teaching Flay a finishing pose for their next battle, and Haruto could only wonder when his peaceful, hold-up life would start. Prince Laius is still bitter after losing to Haruto, as he should be more powerful, as not only is he the next king but he also has the Princess of Light's blood, and he couldn't believe that a supposedly level 2 trash was that powerful. At the same time, his subordinates arrived, asking him to prepare for the dinner party. He also asked Laius to invite Char as his conversation partner for his inspection of the territory. Laius wanted to refuse, but his subordinate insisted that it would be for his sake, and Laius finally understood that it was an order from the queen. After the dinner party, Char came to Haruto's room with his clone to bring him some food. She apologized when she realized that she forgot to knock again, but Haruto was already used to it. He was happy after seeing the extravagant food, but his clone was complaining about how Haruto has been forcing him to do things that they both hate, like attending gatherings. But he couldn't do anything about it, so he just jumped into bed while crying. Char was worried about his brother's clone, so she informed him that she would also be joining the inspection the next day. Haruto was surprised to hear this, so Char explained that the prince had invited her. Haruto wondered if the prince was a lolicon before deciding to join the inspection as well. Concerned about Char's safety, Haruto decided to check the inspection route and the areas around it using his surveillance magic. He immediately found some individuals in black cloaks around a huge magic circle, and he was certain that something was coming out of it, so he decided to check it right away. The mages were shocked, but they immediately asked who he was. Haruto told them that he was just passing by, adding that he was going to go check something with Margrave Gold. Because of this, they thought he was one of Margrave Gold's men, and they started casting their magic to attack him. Before they could attack him, Haruto used his magic to cause an explosion, and almost all of the mages lost consciousness. However, one of the mages managed to finish their ritual and summon some skeleton soldiers. Haruto was excited after seeing the skeleton soldiers, but he thought that they actually looked scary, unlike the ones he sees in games. Although Haruto could easily repel the skeletons, he thought it wasn't going to end. However, he noticed a gem attached to the skeletons, which he used to control them to attack the mages instead. Because of this, one of the mages summoned a golem. The golem easily crushed the skeletons, and Haruto was impressed after seeing its strength, and he was thrown away after blocking the golem's punch using his barrier. The mage rejoiced at seeing this, and he ordered the golem to keep going and crush Haruto. He realized that he underestimated the golem, but while thinking of ways to deal with it, he saw a gem embedded in the golem's chest, and the golem stopped moving after getting hit. The mages panicked, and they ordered the golem to continue moving, but the golem started attacking them instead. One of the mages couldn't understand what was going on, so Haruto explained that he stabbed its chest to stop its movement. However, something changed because of his magic, and he ended up gaining control over it. The mages could only give up after this. Haruto asked the mages who their leader was before ordering the skeletons to tie them up. He asked the leader for his name and affiliation, but he refused to talk, so Haruto ordered the skeletons to bury all of the mages alive. The mages started begging for their lives while calling their captain, so their captain finally decided to talk. He told Haruto that they were the summoner units directly ordered by the queen, and they were summoning the monsters in order to attack the inspection team the next day. Haruto was surprised, and he confirmed if it was their own kingdom's queen before asking what her goal was. The mage immediately admitted that they were ordered to assassinate Charlotte. Haruto was confused, so the mage explained that Charlotte's qualities would someday exceed the queen's, and if there was someone backing her like the Margrave, the queen was worried the country would be split into two. So they were even asking for help from the empire to assassinate Char, but because they had failed twice, the queen had ordered a unit directly under her to finish the task. After hearing that the queen was responsible for the empire's soldiers who attacked his father and those who went after Char and his mother, as well as for throwing him away, he realized that the queen would do anything to keep her position and power. Haruto was enraged, and his powers had almost gone out of control, but the mage was lucky that Haruto had stopped the golem before he was crushed in its hand. He wouldn't forgive anyone who tried to harm his family, even if it was his real mother, and he wondered what he should do about her. But he asked Haruto what he did in their duel since he didn't see him cast any magic. Haruto explained that he could cast reinforcement magic just by thinking about it. The two were shocked by his explanation, but he was surprised by their reaction since his father always accepted his explanation, so he thought it was normal, while Char was just proud of her brother. Because of this, Laius wondered if Haruto was a demi-demon. Haruto doesn't know what a demi-demon is, so he asked Char. Char explained that a demi-demon is the offspring of a human and a demon, and demi-demons possess special qualities like abnormal physical strength and high magic power. But Marion couldn't see any horns or weird ears on Haruto, so it couldn't be the case. Char also added that her brother's body is smooth and clean, and she also said that they have been taking a bath together, so there is no mistaking it. Laius and Marion were surprised after hearing it, and they called out Haruto for being indecent. Haruto explained that it wasn't his idea, and he didn't invite Char to join him. Char was confused, and she asked if it was not allowed, so Marion tried to explain that there is a special meaning when a man and a woman show their bodies to each other. But before she could explain further, the carriage stopped as they arrived at their destination. They were amazed after seeing the beautiful wheat field, and Char excitedly ran towards the field while asking Marion to come check it out with her, and Laius followed them as he didn't want to be left with Haruto. While the three were checking the fields, Haruto came to his father to talk about what he had discovered from the mages, and his father immediately realized that it was something important since it was rare for Haruto to approach him first. Haruto asked his father what would he do if the queen was aiming for Char's life. Haruto panicked and apologized after seeing his father's serious expression. However, he already expected that the queen would be hostile to him, and it was confirmed when he read the letter that the Black Knight had sent him about the mages under the queen who were planning to assassinate Char. He didn't expect that the queen would be after Char, and he felt troubled as he couldn't fight back since she was still the queen of their country. Haruto said that she should just disappear. The kingdom would be a mess if she was not around. Then he explained that His Majesty King Jerk had long lost his power, so there are many aristocrats who are after the throne, but a queen's existence is needed to calm them down. Then he told Haruto that Giselot was a member of the demon subjugation team led by the king 12 years ago, and she beheaded the demon king all by herself. And because of this, she became a hero called the Princess of Light, and she got married to the king because of the people's strong support. And after gaining more power, she's been trying to take over the country even until the present. Haruto didn't know that the queen was that amazing since he was determined not to get involved with them, so he never looked into their background. Then Gold explained that it would be different if there was someone who could surpass the queen's power. Haruto asked his father why he hadn't tried to be the king, so he explained that he was bad at politics and didn't fit the role. However, he thought that Char would be able to lead the country someday. Not only is she a fast learner, but her level's limit wasn't determined yet, so it was possible that she could surpass the queen. And Haruto understood that his father wanted him to protect Char until she became a proper queen, and he also thought that he could finally relax and enjoy his life once Char ascended to the throne. Flay wanted to kill the queen, determined to avenge Haruto, as she still thought that the demon king the queen had killed was Haruto in his previous life. Haruto told her that he would do it himself, and he was looking forward to his reunion with his mother, as he was certain that he needed to do something to prevent her from interfering with their lives. The kingdom's soldiers were informing the queen that they had failed to kill Charlotte again due to the Black Knight's interference. Because it was already the third time they had failed, she was thinking of facing the Black Knight herself and killing Charlotte with her own hands. However, the Black Knight came to her himself, and he dealt with the queen's subordinates easily. The queen couldn't believe that he managed to sneak through the palace's barrier, but Haruto just tore through the barriers easily. The queen used a 3-layered magic circle to trap him inside a water sphere. But Haruto easily escaped from it, so she immediately launched numerous icicles at him. He was surprised at how fast she could cast her magic. Although Haruto managed to block the icicles, he was engulfed by the queen's fire magic, and she thought she could burn him like charcoal. However, he was still unscathed, and while she was wondering what kind of creature Haruto was, he launched a counterattack that was barely blocked by the queen. He kept attacking until she ran out of energy, so she had no choice but to rely on her swordsmanship to continue fighting. Although it looked like she had the upper hand, Haruto easily disarmed her with one strike. Afterwards, Haruto placed a collar around the queen's neck using his magic. She felt insulted by the collar, so she wanted to try removing it. But Haruto warned her that her head would be cut off if she tried removing it by force. The queen was even more enraged, and she asked what Haruto was planning to do with her. However, he told her that he didn't care about her plans or what she would become. But he warned her about meddling with Margrave Gold's family and territory again. Then he told her that she could never remove the collar until he forgave her, and before leaving, he reminded her of the consequences if she tried to go against his request. The queen was in tears after suffering this humiliation. Haruto wasn't comfortable after dealing with his biological mother, and even Flay thought that he was lax. But she was impressed with his method of putting her under control. Although Haruto didn't kill his mother this time, he was planning to prepare in case she tried anything. And he vowed that he wouldn't show mercy next time, and Flay was pleased to hear it. After Haruto overpowered the queen in their battle, 5 peaceful years had passed where she had never interfered with Haruto's family or territory. Haruto was with Char and Flay, who were both playing in the snow. Char was still an anime geek as she proudly showed Haruto the transformation brooch she made using the snow, while he was amazed that Flay replicated their castle. But he thought that her skills were mostly useless. Then he noticed that Flay was feeling cold because she refused to wear anything else aside from the maid's uniform that Haruto likes. So Haruto had to use his magic to dress her in a coat. And he also told her to just ask if she had anything she needed. Hearing this, Flay immediately said that she had 10 requests for him, which Haruto rejected without hesitation. Afterwards, Char told him that she also had a request for him. She told Haruto that she had thought up a special move that uses the snow. However, she couldn't do it herself, so she wanted him to use his powers and do it instead. Haruto got a bad feeling about it, but he was willing to do it for Char, and Flay felt jealous that he hadn't rejected her request. She made him recite some embarrassing chants before making a cyclone out of snow. The special move dug a deep crater in the ground, so both Flay and Char were amazed at how powerful he was. Although he still felt embarrassed, he didn't mind it after seeing how happy Char was. However, their parents suddenly arrived, and they were wondering what the crater on the ground was. Char was worried that they would discover Haruto's power, so Haruto made a copy of Black Knight and told them that he just showed up to show them his special move, and they chose to believe it when Char also tried to convince them. Afterwards, Haruto and Gold talked about how the queen had stopped trying to kill Char. Gold has also heard that the queen has stopped appearing in public because she has a slave-like collar around her neck. He also added that at first, everyone who saw the queen thought that it was just a weird fashion item, but they realized that it couldn't be taken off. Haruto felt satisfied that the queen and the empire had stopped interfering with their lives, and he thought of immediately going back to his room to start the hold-up life he had been dreaming of. However, Gold stopped him from leaving and told him that he would be attending a school in the capital starting next summer. Haruto didn't want to go, as he only had bad experiences in school in his previous life. However, Gold explained that the king requested it himself. Gold was thinking that Princess Marion had requested this since she had been interested in him since the inspection. He also added that Prince Laius would be skipping grades to be in the same class as Haruto, so the king is also aiming to create a good friendship between the prince and Haruto. Although Gold was worried that the queen was scheming something, they couldn't refuse as it would cause a lot of trouble for Gold, and even Haruto understood this. Afterwards, they had to pick a personal attendant for Haruto since he had to focus on studying completely while at school. They couldn't think of anyone aside from Flay, but Haruto was certain that she would just cause more trouble for him, so he decided against bringing her. At the same time, Natalia showed up, saying that she could easily take care of him and his meals. However, she couldn't go as well, as no student is bringing their parents to be their attendant, so they decided to just look for an attendant in the remaining 3 months before the school starts. Although Haruto agreed, he was actually planning to have his clone attend school for him while he started his hold-up life. But, as he had expected, his clone refused. Haruto explained that he would just be attending temporarily, as they would use the fact that his clone is weak and unable to use magic, so he was planning to make himself look incompetent in order to get kicked out of the school right away. His clone refuted that he could just do it himself, so Haruto explained that he might accidentally use his barrier magic if he got into trouble. The clone still refused, so Haruto promised to use his barrier magic to protect him before saying that he had no choice but to go. The clone was still unhappy, as he wanted to live a hold-up life as well, but he finally agreed, thinking that it was really necessary. After reaching an agreement with his clone, Haruto went to a lakeside log house he had built on a nearby mountain. It took him 5 years to build the house, but he was satisfied as he thought that it was where he would be staying for his peaceful hold-up life. He felt more satisfied playing his console game alone in the quiet house compared to staying inside the castle. He thought it was the best. However, he couldn't prevent Flay and Char from coming over to watch anime. Haruto thought that Char was getting bored watching anime as she wasn't coming over to his room to watch, but she explained that she was actually getting more lectures now and that their parents had also asked her to stop hanging around in his room too much. So she asked Flay to bring her to his lakeside house, as she wanted to watch more anime. After hearing this, Haruto realized that it was actually hard for her to get into his house, so he mentioned that he could also use his magic for teleportation. However, although he tried using it to travel short distances, he had never tried it with living beings. After hearing this, Flay immediately suggested using his clone to experiment. Haruto thought she was horrible, but she refuted that he had made the clone to be useful for him. Afterwards, Haruto opened a portal to his room in the castle and asked his clone to pass through it. However, his clone knew what he was thinking. Haruto was afraid of failing and being lost in space, so he didn't want to try it himself. Then his clone started provoking him, thinking that he wouldn't dare pass through the portal. Haruto was pissed and wanted to use his magic to drag his clone through the portal. However, Flay was also furious, so she jumped through the portal first and threw his clone into his log house through the portal. Seeing this, Haruto concluded that the experiment was a success, and that they had solved the problem of going back and forth to the castle. But Haruto remembered that he had forgotten to find himself an attendant. While playing games in his rest house, Haruto remembered that he still had to look for an attendant, and both Char and Flay almost heard him, so he had to pretend that it was nothing and go out for a walk. While taking a walk, he decided to venture deep inside the forest, and he saw that all the skeletons that he got from the summoners were busy carrying materials for their house's construction, so he remembered that it had become their residence. When the skeletons noticed him, they all stopped what they were doing and gathered in front of him to pay their respect. The leader of the monsters, Johnny, was really glad to have Haruto in the village, and he told Haruto that he could order him as he wished. Haruto asked why monsters had also started living in the village. Johnny explained that they are stray monsters gathered by Flay from all over the region, and he also added that they had divided the place with them and they are following his orders. So Haruto doesn't need to worry. Haruto realized that the place had expanded since his last visit, but he thought it was fine if the monsters would just live peacefully there. Johnny offered to tour him inside the village, and he happily showed Haruto the farm, where they grow crops and raise livestock that will serve as the monsters' food. While walking around with Johnny, Haruto realized that Johnny could be the perfect attendant for him if he made him look more human, as he was gentle, polite, kind, loyal to him, and had a haughty voice. However, he realized that he was talking way too much and that he wouldn't be able to endure listening to him every single day, so he decided against it. Johnny noticed that Haruto looked troubled, so he thought he had made a mistake. Seeing this, Haruto decided to praise him for his impressive work in the village. Johnny was really delighted to receive his praise, so he promised to work even harder, and Haruto couldn't help but think that he was a really nice and hardworking guy. Afterwards, Johnny wanted to take Haruto to the other parts of the village, but Haruto wanted to leave, so he told Johnny that he had something to do. Haruto went to a nearby river. He felt exhausted after going around the village. He thought he could spend some time alone deep in the forest before he remembered that it had already transformed into a paradise for the skeletons and the monsters. Egan, the giant golem he got from the summoners, showed up beside him. She noticed that Haruto looked troubled, so she gave him a flower, thinking it was pretty. Haruto was surprised by her cute voice, and he thought that she wouldn't bother him since she was docile. Because of this, he wondered if he should make her his attendant, but he immediately realized that her size would be a problem. Haruto asked her if she felt bored staying in the village, and he wondered if she would be alright since she was always alone. But she actually liked Haruto, so she was staying with him. Haruto still couldn't find an attendant, so he started wondering if it was actually difficult to find one. But he decided to return home first. Flay was waiting for him at home, and she immediately asked about the attendant he had mentioned before going out. He was surprised that she was sharp in this kind of situation, and then he thought of just bringing her as his attendant. However, he remembered that his father told him that Flay was not a choice, so he told her that it had nothing to do with her. The next day, Char told him that she had thought of other fitting names for the Black Knight. It was Schwarzer, in short, Schwa. Char excitedly explained that it was a supreme being that reigned over creation and destruction. But Haruto just felt apologetic that he turned a noble daughter into an otaku. Afterwards, Johnny welcomed Char and Flay to the village, explaining that every summoned creature saved by Haruto and the stray monsters picked up by Flay were all staying in the village. Char thought that Haruto was amazing, unaware that Flay actually did most of the work to secure the monster's habitat. Then she suggested naming the place Pandemonium. Johnny thought that it was a wonderful name, and Flay also agreed. At the same time, on a mountain with a strong snowstorm, a blizzard dragon was cornered by a group of warriors, who were determined to hunt the dragon as they could earn a lot from it. However, the snowstorm got even stronger, so the dragon disappeared from their sight, but they saw it when it started flying through the storm. The dragon had several arrows buried in its body, so it had difficulty flying, and it immediately fell into the mountains, causing an avalanche that also dragged the dragon down the mountain. Gold informed Haruto that a huge blue monster had flown from the Empire but crashed before passing through the Imperial border. Because it was still outside their territory, Haruto didn't want to get involved. However, Gold was worried that it could enter their region anytime soon, and since it was injured after being hunted in the Empire, it could rampage in their territory instead, which could cause a lot of casualties, so he wanted Flay, who was also a demon, to check its situation. Flay refused, saying that she would only follow Haruto's orders, so Haruto immediately ordered her to do what Gold had asked her. However, Haruto was surprised when she actually refused to follow, so he asked the reason for it. Flay explained that, based on the dragon's size, it wasn't born recently. However, she didn't know any blue dragons who had fought with them during the desperate fight between the demons and humans, so she was certain that this dragon had hidden itself in the mountains and feigned ignorance, and she didn't want to protect such a coward. Because of this, Haruto asked his father if they could think about this matter first. Gold agreed, but he reminded them that they didn't have much time. Char was outside the room, eavesdropping. Haruto told her that it was wrong, and she immediately apologized. She was concerned about the dragon. She thought it was alone, wounded and scared, so she immediately asked Flay to save the dragon. Then Haruto told Flay that Char's wish was also his wish, so Flay couldn't refuse anymore, and she declared that she would eliminate all the adventurers. After arriving at the border, Haruto immediately used his magic to find the dragon, and he noticed that it looked really worn out, while Flay noticed that the adventurers were on their way to hunt the dragon, so Haruto realized that they had to hurry. The adventurers immediately attacked the dragon, but Flay and Haruto showed up to block them, and Haruto quickly healed the dragon. The adventurers couldn't understand what the duo was up to, but Flay went on a rampage and tried to burn and kill them, so Haruto had to use his barrier to protect them. After dealing with the adventurers, Haruto introduced himself as the Black Knight to the dragon, but she actually froze him instead. He easily broke the ice, but he was pissed that she tried to freeze him even after he saved her. Haruto noticed that she could actually talk to him through his mind, similar to when he first met Flay, so he asked what she was. However, the dragon ignored him and talked to Flay instead. She couldn't understand why Flay was obeying Haruto, so she asked Flay why, and Flay excitedly told her everything from when she first met Haruto, and her story lasted for an hour. But the dragon finally understood why Flay was following Haruto, and she believed that he was really the reincarnation of the Demon King. She apologized for not fighting alongside the demons during the war before explaining that she had hidden herself and lived a quiet life in the mountains for 300 years because she didn't like fighting. Haruto was surprised that a dragon didn't like fighting, but he was excited and jealous of her shut-in life, so he asked what she had been doing for the past 300 years. She explained that she was just curled up in the cave at first, but she got a book that an adventurer left behind, and she read it over and over. Because of this, she felt the urge to read even more books, so she decided to leave her cave and head to a human village. And from then on, she would take on human form and visit human villages to take some books with her. She thought it was so much fun, so she did it countless times and gained so much knowledge. However, she was discovered by adventurers, so she had to escape, leaving all her books behind. Flay was really touched by her story, and she immediately acknowledged her as one of her brethren, so she offered to let her stay in Pandemonium. Haruto didn't know where that was, so Flay explained that it was his second home, and the name was chosen by Char. Then Haruto explained that their goal in meeting her was to offer her shelter. The dragon was delighted to hear it, so she immediately agreed. While looking forward to reading some more books and spending time with others, she wanted to feel the emotions that she had learned through the books. Afterwards, she thanked Haruto for saving her and accepted him as her master. Then she started transforming into her human form. Haruto noticed this, as it was similar to his first meeting with Flay, and he used his magic to dress her before she could finish transforming. The dragon, who had turned into a loli, was surprised and she couldn't understand where the clothes came from, and she asked if it was creation magic. It made her uneasy that she couldn't understand the logic behind his magic, so Haruto told her that they would discuss it later. Then he removed his mask and introduced himself. The dragon didn't have a name, so he didn't know what to call her. She noticed this, so she asked Haruto to give her a name, and since she was a blizzard dragon, he decided to call her Lisa. Lisa liked her new name, and she happily greeted Haruto. However, Flay interrupted them, and she reminded Lisa that she was the first to serve Haruto. Afterwards, they decided to return home, and since Lisa could also fly, Flay was left alone running, trying her best to catch up to them. Haruto introduced Lisa as the Blizzard Dragon, and he told them that she wanted to work as a maid in the castle. Natalia thought she was really cute, while Char and Lisa looked really excited to meet each other. Gold was impressed that Haruto actually managed to save and tame a blizzard dragon, and he immediately agreed that she work in the castle as long as she followed the rules. Flay guided Lisa around the castle while explaining their job. First, she brought her to the yard to teach her how to clean. Flay was bad at this task, and she broke the broom like it was just a stick, while Lisa was actually good at it, and she easily cleaned the whole yard. They went to the kitchen to do dishwashing next. This time Flay was breaking all the plates while Lisa was cleaning them really well. Afterwards, the two started cooking. Flay just burned the food, while Lisa received praise from the other maids for her excellent cooking skills. And during the dinner, Lisa received even more praise for her cooking from Gold and Natalia, as they really liked the meal she prepared. And Flay could only stay in the corner, feeling depressed and defeated. Lisa also took care of Char really well, so Natalia thought that she was doing really well. And she remembered that the other maids praised Lisa for being a quick learner. But Lisa said that it was because they taught her really well. Afterwards, Natalia asked her if there were other things that she was good at. She said that she loves reading books, so she knows basic magic. Because of this, Natalia wanted her to become Char's personal maid. Gold agreed right away, so Lisa promised that she would do her best. Flay got even more depressed after witnessing this. The next day, Lisa started her duties as Char's personal maid. She woke her up early in the morning and helped her get dressed. Afterwards, she started training Char in magic, helped her study while cleaning her room, accompanied her to read in the library, and happily took a bath together. Char's magic had improved a lot after Lisa started teaching her, and she happily showed Haruto how she could make a huge fireball now while saying that it was all thanks to Lisa. Haruto was amazed, and then he got curious about the water sphere floating beside Lisa. She explained that she was doing the laundry, so Haruto thought that she was really capable since she could do her job properly while teaching Char. Haruto asked if she was tired from moving around so much before apologizing for making her do so much stuff. But Lisa told him that she actually likes it and that it calms her better. After hearing Haruto, Char thought that she was causing Lisa trouble, but Lisa said that she actually likes taking care of her. She thought it was fun. Char was happy to hear it, and she asked Lisa to become her friend. Lisa looked at Haruto to ask for permission, and he happily told her that she could do what she wished, so she told Char that she wanted to be her friend. Char was really happy, as she always wanted to have a friend, while Haruto thought that the two were really precious. Haruto thought that Lisa was such a good girl, as she was earnest, good at learning, and adapts quickly. Then he realized that she was the perfect attendant that she was looking for. However, he felt bad separating her from Char, as she had just become her personal maid and friend. Although he felt helpless at first, he thought he could make a teleportation portal to the capital so he wouldn't need to separate the two, and now he just needs to plan how he could drop out early from the academy. Inside Haruto's rest house, Char was feeling down after her favorite anime had finished, so Haruto told her that a new one would start the following week. Then Lisa reminded her that her break was over, so they used the teleportation door to return to the castle. But before they could leave, Haruto mentioned that he would be going to school in the capital starting next week. Char tried to confirm what she heard, but after Haruto repeated his word, she started thinking of a dark student council, terrorists, and a magic battle. Then she asked Lisa to cancel all their plans and gather all the knights in order to hold an emergency roundtable meeting. Char, Flay, Lisa, Giga, and Johnny gathered to talk about Haruto studying at the capital. Char reminded everyone to keep everything a secret before bringing up the matter. Johnny and Flay were surprised, and then she got upset that Haruto hadn't told her about it first. But Char calmed her down, saying that she had also found out about it and that there must be a reason behind it. Flay couldn't understand why Haruto had to learn anything from mere humans, and she would have mentioned that Haruto was the Demon King if Johnny hadn't stopped her. Char noticed this and immediately asked about it, so Flay explained that it was a secret between demons, and even Lisa refused to tell her. Char felt down because of this, but Johnny told her that she was the person most favored by Haruto, and he was certain that Haruto would tell her about it someday. It made Char feel better right away, so she focused on the meeting again. Char couldn't understand why Haruto would attend a school on his own volition, as she remembered that when she asked him about school, when she saw it in anime, he told her that it was a terrifying and dangerous place. Flay and Johnny were shocked. They thought that there should be nothing that could terrify their master. Char explained that based on the anime that she saw, a school would have a dark student council that would drag other students into evil magic battles where the loser would be ordered around by the victor, and an evil organization that was planning to shake the country. The group was shocked, but Char continued and told them that Haruto must have made up his mind to fight them as the Black Knight. Flay and Johnny agreed with Char's conclusion, and they thought that Haruto would really be the only person strong enough to deal with these dangers. Because of this, Char wanted to go to the capital with Lisa and Flay to gather information, while she asked Johnny and Gigan to continue developing Pandemonium. Lisa asked if it was alright to proceed with their plan without consulting Haruto, but Char said that they couldn't make Haruto worried, while Flay said that they would just be a burden if they waited for Haruto's every order. And since their roundtable nights exist for Haruto, they thought it was time for them to make a move. After returning to the castle, Lisa mentioned everything to Haruto. He was really thankful to her, as he had no idea what would happen if he didn't find out about it. Lisa asked if he was really fighting an evil organization. He thought that she took everything seriously, so he had to make a convincing explanation. With a serious expression, he told Lisa that he had been acting in secret, then asked her to come along to the capital as her attendant since he had an important mission for her that no one else could do. Lisa was convinced by his words, so she agreed to do what he asked. Because of this, Haruto thought that he just had to execute his plan to quickly drop out of school next, then thanked Lisa for completing her mission, and everything would wrap up nicely. The scene then changed, showing how the maids were spending their break time with Flay. One of the maids complained that her partner hadn't kept his promise, as she had already been waiting for 2 years for him to ask her for marriage. Flay thought the man's neck should be cut, and she gave the same response when the other maid complained about her cheating husband or a loud neighbor. Char asked Flay why her maid uniform was different from the other maids, so she explained that she arrived at the castle while wearing a sexy outfit, so the maids had asked her to change. However, her chest couldn't fit even on the biggest maid uniform, so she had to wear a custom-made one, and Haruto liked it. Char asked Flay if she knew how to fly, and Flay said that she could, although she was not used to it. However, she just jumped really high instead, and Char thought that it was amazing. Haruto saw this, but Natalia told Char that it was too early for her to fly when she found out what they were up to. Char started sulking after this, so Flay went to Haruto immediately, and since he saw everything, he made a small airplane using his magic right away. Natalia couldn't understand what was going on, but Flay assured her that it was perfectly safe, and Haruto was satisfied after seeing Char enjoying the airplane. Haruto was curious about Lisa's life when she was still holed up in a cave. Lisa explained that she would wake up at noon, read books in the afternoon until she fell asleep, wake up in the evening, then read books again at night before going to sleep. Haruto thought it was the ideal life, but Lisa said that because of this, she lost track of time, and 10 years would pass whenever she thought of returning the books. Haruto asked about her meal, and he thought that she was an expert in holding up when she said that she only eats once a week. After Haruto made an open-air bath in his rest house, Char and Lisa enjoyed it immediately. Flay would only soak the tip of her tail in the bath since she doesn't like hot water, so Char and Lisa said that Haruto went through a lot of trouble to make the bath to lure her. and she finally jumped into the bath after some hesitation. And since then she has started taking a bath after her work. Afterwards, Haruto asked the girls to try the magic level measuring device that he had made. The girls happily agreed. Flay's level was 40 with a maximum level of 77, and Lisa's was 36 with a maximum level of 71. Haruto expected this. However, he was surprised that Char was level 17, with a maximum level of 61. It was significantly higher than the Queen's level, which was 44, and he thought she could reach her maximum level soon if she continued training. But Char explained that their mom had put a sealing spell on her when she was still a baby because she made a fireball without realizing it. Haruto thought that she was really a genius, but the girls were more interested in finding out his level. Flay was certain that it would be over 100, but he told them that it was a secret. Haruto said his goodbyes to his family as he was about to leave for the capital, but Gold noticed that Lisa was restless because Haruto had hidden her tail and ears with his magic. Flay was depressed because Lisa was chosen to be Haruto's attendant instead of her, while Char cheered him on, thinking that he was really going to fight an evil organization. Marion excitedly informed Laius that Haruto was on his way to the capital after she received the letter from Gold. Laius said that she didn't have to report everything, but it was revealed that he actually did everything so Haruto would get a recommendation letter. Although he was determined to catch up to Haruto, he realized that he couldn't even measure the gap between their strengths. So he wanted Haruto to be at the same school as him so he could find out how strong he really is. Marion thought that although he was still cocky, he had changed a lot. Laius was annoyed, so he argued that she was the one who locked herself up until Haruto was given a recommendation letter. She tried to argue that she wasn't attracted to Haruto, but she ended up making it more obvious. And Laius was speechless after seeing his sister feel embarrassed. Since they were talking about school, Laius remembered that people from a religion called Luciferist had taken control of schools. Marion explained that they were a new sect of the state religion, Mijaism, that had radical beliefs like worshipping the devil, and their influence had spread throughout the country, not just the schools. Then she also said that there were rumors that they were trying to overthrow the monarchy, but the nobles chose to join them, which also increased their source of funds. And Laius had heard that their mother also funded this religion. They couldn't understand what she was trying to do, but they were certain that her actions had started to become extreme 5 years ago, when she got the collar on her neck. Laius had no idea who put it on her, and she also refused to tell him. And because of her extreme actions, he even started to fear her, and he was worried that she was actually trying to take down their father. They had no idea what they should do, but Marion had the feeling that Haruto would be the one to change their situation. They did not know the limit of his power, but she had the feeling that he was strong enough to even overthrow an entire organization. Because they were talking about Haruto, Lois remembered Black Knight, the ally of justice in Zenfi's territory who was even strong enough to take down a dragon, and he thought that the issue would be solved if they asked for his help. However, the queen suddenly entered the room. The two nervously greeted her, but she suddenly choked Marion when she noticed that she glanced at her collar. While tightening her grip, she asked Marion if she was laughing at her, thinking that she looked strange and pathetic. Marion begged her to stop, but she only released her when Laius stopped her, and she brushed everything off as a joke. Afterwards, she told Laius to get as much information about the Black Knight as possible from Haruto. Because of this, he thought that he had accidentally dragged Haruto into a terrible situation, and he could only feel guilty about it. After getting far enough from their castle, Haruto returned to his rest house, as he didn't actually need to travel using the carriage since he had already installed a teleportation door near the capital. He just lazed around, waiting for the day that he was supposed to arrive in the capital. Flay was still begging him to bring her as his attendant instead, which he refused, so Char had to console her and remind her that they still had something they needed to do. Then she told Haruto to leave everything to him and focus on his duties at the capital, and she didn't forget to tell him to be careful before he left. Haruto and Lisa teleported inside a forest near the capital, as this was the only place where he could hide the teleportation door. While looking at the capital's direction, Haruto thought that they had to walk to avoid attracting attention. However, Lisa noticed that a carriage was being chased by an evil bison. He thought he could just ignore the situation, but he was certain that it would be a problem if Char found out about it, so he had no choice but to transform into the Black Knight and help. While invisible, Haruto saved the kid who was thrown out of the carriage, but he decided to observe the situation first as there seemed to be a powerful girl among the group. The girl managed to stop the bison's charge, but it threw her into the air, and she was defenseless after receiving some injuries. So Haruto finally decided to take action and stomped the bison in the head, and it immediately lost consciousness. The girl asked who he was, but she wondered if she should thank him first, so Haruto thought that something was wrong with her head, before saying that people would normally express their gratitude first. Then he healed her injuries after seeing that she was in pain. The girl was surprised. She noticed that it was Haruto who healed her, but she got curious since his magic was different from a normal healing spell. At the same time, the kid asked her if she was alright before thanking Haruto for saving them. Haruto felt shy, but he introduced himself as the enforcer of justice, Schwa, and the kid thought he was cool, although the other people fell into silence instead. Afterwards, Haruto used his magic to repair the carriage, so the girl was even more amazed by him, thinking that he could do anything. Haruto asked why they were using a shabby cargo carriage, so the girl explained that it was a horse bus and people who didn't have much money used it. Then she apologized that they couldn't reward him with any money. Haruto said that it was alright since an ally of justice doesn't seek any compensation, but the girl was determined to reward him next time. Afterwards, Haruto decided to leave while bringing the bison, planning to return it to its herd since it didn't really try to attack him. She was amazed by his kindness, and she thought it would be nice if more people thought like him. Then she asked if they would meet again. Lisa and Haruto fed the bison before releasing it into the forest. Afterwards, the two walked towards the capital. Lisa thought that the woman was weird, as she could feel something strange from her. However, she couldn't describe it properly, and since Haruto wasn't planning to stay for long in the capital, he didn't want to get involved with her. Haruto had to endure the long queue to enter the capital, and he already felt like going home because of this. Once inside, he had to go through a huge file of documents, so he was exhausted before he could go to his room. Lisa was excited to see that attendants also had their own room, but Haruto immediately opened a teleportation door connected to his house as he couldn't feel at home in the room at all. Char and Flay welcomed his return, but he immediately lay on the couch, thinking that it was best to stay at home. Afterwards, he asked Flay to prepare something for him. Flay was excited, and she was determined to make something delicious for him. However, Char suggested that they go to a restaurant in the capital instead. Haruto was hesitant to agree, so Flay also suggested staying inside the house with determination. But Char convinced her, and she also suggested going out instead, and Haruto just felt amazed that Char had Flay wrapped around her little finger. Char was prepared. She made Flay cosplay to hide that she was a demon, but it just made it even more obvious, so Haruto used his magic to hide her ears and tail, similar to what he did for Lisa. Char and Lisa were amazed with all the shops surrounding them, while Haruto was surprised with how lively the town was. Then they happily ate at a restaurant that Char had chosen. After their meal, Char took out a map and assigned both Lisa and Flay to check one district of the city each, while she and Haruto checked one district together. She said that their goal was to check that the city's layout was accurate, and then she reminded everyone to be discreet and avoid making a fuss. After Lisa and Flay had left, Char told Haruto that they were on a date. Haruto was nervous, but he was certain that Char had just seen it on anime, and he thought that she didn't really know what it meant. He realized that it was his first date since he didn't have any experience in his previous life either, but he wanted to accompany her as best as he could. The two happily checked out the town before stopping by a small jewelry shop. Char saw a necklace she liked, and Haruto bought it right away, showing how much he spoils his little sister. Afterwards, they went to the town fountain, where Char accidentally bumped into the girl that Haruto had previously saved. The girl realized that Haruto was the Black Knight because of his enormous magic power. However, since she didn't really see his face previously, Haruto denied it before saying that his magic level was only 2, so it was offensive to call it enormous. The girl couldn't believe it, so Haruto emphasized that he wouldn't lie about something really shameful. She apologized for souring Haruto's mood, and she left for her interview when he reminded her that she was in a hurry. Haruto told Char that they should also leave. However, Char continued staring at the girl before saying that she gave her a strange feeling. And although she couldn't describe it, she thought that the girl felt different from a normal person. Because of this, Haruto remembered that Lisa said the same thing, and he wondered if demons and people with high magic like Char could feel something. But he still refused to get involved with the girl, and he only wants to laze around until the entrance ceremony. Haruto's clone informed him that a school official told him that he needed to take a proficiency test before the entrance ceremony. His clone sternly refused to take it. Haruto thought that it was his mistake to think that he was exempted from it, but he realized that it was his chance. He agreed to be the one to take it. He was planning to show his incompetence through the test to get kicked out of the school, but a professor saw him when he was about to enter, and he asked if he was Haruto's Zenfis. When he affirmed it, the professor immediately asked Haruto to follow him. Haruto was amazed to see the huge classroom. He tried to sound excited, thinking that he would be in this classroom starting in the spring and make friends with his new classmates. But he actually felt depressed. It was a terrifying reality for him. The professor got worried after seeing him. He said that he was fine, but he felt like his life was being drained by the extrovert environment, so he thought that he had to fail the exam at all costs. Although he was just planning to fail on purpose, he really didn't know anything after checking the questions, and he decided to write no clue on a third of the exam. The next part of the exam was barrier magic. He thought it would be obvious that he was trying to mess up his answers if he was wrong on everything, so he decided to answer some of the questions in this part. Although he still half-assed his answers, saying that a barrier he creates can move, have different colors, and doesn't need mana to sustain itself, he thought he wouldn't get any point from these answers. The last part of the exam was about ancient magic. Haruto remembered a book that was written by someone with an extremely long name. He loved reading the books by this author, and without realizing it, he wrote so much of its contents into the exam paper. Haruto thought that the exam was over, but the professor asked him to follow him to the next room for his mana level assessment. He tried to refuse, saying that his mana level was 2, so it was just a waste to assess him. However, the professor apologized and insisted that they needed to follow the rules. The professor led him to another room, and he called the doctor, saying that he had brought Haruto. Haruto was surprised, and he even called the crystal ball a piece of junk, although it was supposed to be a precious item. At the same time, he thought that it should be enough to piss Terrietta off and get himself expelled. However, she actually thought that it was spectacular. She explained that Haruto possessed so much magic that Mija's ball couldn't handle it. Professor Palkos was confused, as he had heard that Haruto's maximum mana level was only 2, but Professor Terrietta wasn't buying it. Then it was revealed that the exam she had given Haruto was at Royal Magician level, which is too advanced, and she was impressed that he had the courage to put no clue as his answer. Then she thought that his answers on both barrier and ancient magic were also splendid, as they were almost a perfect copy of her writing. Because of this, Haruto realized that she was the author with an extremely long name, and she wrote the book he was reading. However, it was revealed that everything was her plan anyway, and Haruto was pissed when he thought that they were actually toying with him. Afterwards, she asked Haruto to join her on her research, which he sternly refused. It didn't matter how she tried to convince him, as he just walked away after refusing again, and she couldn't do anything to stop him instead of getting kicked out. But they still haven't given up on their plan. To avoid confusion on their names, Haruto's clone name became Haruto-C. Although he and Haruto had the same memories and personalities, he didn't have any magic, so Char gave him a gun he could use for self-defense, aside from the defensive magic Haruto had cast on him. And although he didn't want to, he had no choice but to attend the entrance ceremony. After the class, Haruto-C tried to rush back quietly into his dorm. While he was on his way back, he noticed a group of extroverts, and he thought he should avoid them at all costs. But he heard the voice of the student leading them, so he thought he was calling him out. But he was actually talking to Iris-Philia, so he tried to walk away, and they immediately recognized each other. The arrogant student was annoyed that they walked past him without saluting. Iris-Philia apologized before saying that she doesn't recall anything of the sort in the student handbook. The arrogant student was even more pissed. He introduced himself as the student vice president, Schneidel, and demanded that they bow down to him. Iris-Philia said that she was a new student, so she didn't know of this rule. Schneidel asked Haruto-C to explain everything to her, but since he was desperate to leave and didn't want to get involved with them, he tried pretending that he needed to go to the restroom. Schneidel was enraged by his obvious lie, so he immediately channeled his magic to attack Haruto-C. Schneidel was satisfied after seeing him lying face down on the ground, but since he was protected by Haruto's barrier, he got up like nothing happened. Schneidel was shocked that he couldn't even scratch Haruto-C, while Haruto-C realized that he should have pretended that he was injured. Iris-Philia apologized for getting him caught up in her trouble. She wanted to quell Schneidel's anger, but she still couldn't understand why he was pissed. Haruto-C was surprised that she was worse at communicating and reading the room compared to him. Schneidel was enraged. He started casting his magic again, but this time he was trying to kill both of them. Magic gun. He was thrown away by recoil, but he didn't waste any time and ran away while Schneidel was screaming in pain. Haruto-C was depressed while telling Haruto everything, and he didn't forget to mention how Professor Terrietta was chasing him around. Because of this, Haruto felt sorry for him and told him to go back home and rest. Schneidel had sent Haruto a letter challenging him to a duel. He tried to refuse, but the girl explained that it would bring dishonor to Margrave Gold, so he had no choice but to accept, and losing on purpose was also not an option as it was even worse than rejecting. Haruto felt troubled. He couldn't think of any plan aside from losing on purpose, but he was afraid to get hurt. He was worried that Schneider would be skilled enough that he would be hurt if he followed this plan. At the same time, Haruto saw Irisfilia following the girl who gave him the letter back to Schneider's house. She tried to ask him to cancel his duel against Haruto, saying that all the blame should be on her, and she added that he was in no shape for a duel. He was still in pain because of his injury, and he was frustrated that the girl who was healing him couldn't heal him fast enough, so he took out his anger on her. Haruto couldn't believe Schneider's attitude. He thought he was the perfect example of a big, fat jerk. He asked Irisfilia to apologize, but he wasn't satisfied when she did so, and he asked her to dance naked in front of him. She actually agreed. Schneider was surprised, but he and his group were brimming with excitement. They were full of anticipation when she was about to remove her top. But Haruto couldn't endure watching anymore. He sealed the whole area in a special dimension covered in complete darkness while appearing as the Dark Knight. He scolded Irisfilia for not having any self-respect and being defenseless, but he immediately shifted his focus on Schneider. He had no idea what was going on, and he didn't know who Haruto was. After Haruto introduced himself as Shiva, the enforcer of justice, Schneider immediately tried to attack him. However, Haruto used his magic to create a vise block that put extreme pressure on Schneider's injury. He told Schneider that it was his punishment for trying to pick a fight with a new student, for the duel, and for sexually harassing Irisfilia. Schneider was still acting proud. He declared that he was the next head of the Hafen family as well as the vice president, so he was permitted to give guidance to underclassmen. And even when Haruto warned him that the vise would clamp tighter if he used his magic or tried to remove her. Before Haruto left, he told Schneider that he would only remove the vise once he called off the duel and atoned for his sins. Everyone was freed from his magic after he left, but they were surprised to see Schneider in extreme pain, hold their laughter after seeing him, so his anger for Haruto intensified. After injuring Schneider, Haruto was called to the faculty. He thought he would be expelled right away. However, the professors praised him instead. They were satisfied that he injured Schneider, and they didn't believe that he was just level 2. Because of this, he was in a foul mood and thought Schneider had to pay for this situation. At the same time, he noticed that even the students were talking about him. He realized that he was the talk of the whole school, so he tried to run back to his room and hole up. And he even refused Terrietta's offer before she could say anything. But she still didn't give up, and even when he pretended that he forgot her offer, she willingly offered to explain everything again. Terrietta explained that Haruto would need to choose between enrolling in Knight's course or the researcher's course, and since she noticed that he was interested in ancient magic based on his exam, she thought he should work under her. Haruto decided to pick the researcher's course, but he'd prefer to join any other lab than hers, but she didn't listen at all and asked him to sign the form. At the same time, Laius showed up, playfully greeting Haruto with a punch. However, Haruto didn't recognize him, so he ended up disarming him, and he only realized that he was Laius when Marion scolded him for his violent greeting. Haruto was surprised by how buff Laius was, while he thought Marion was as pretty as ever. Meanwhile, Laius thought Haruto got even stronger while holding his shoulder, which was still in pain. Haruto asked if they needed something from him, and Laius told him that he shouldn't be formal since they were both new students. However, Haruto just told him that he was talking to Marion, not him, which pisses Laius off. Afterwards, Marion and Laius argued, as she wanted to recruit Haruto to her research lab while Laius wanted to do the Knight's courses with him. However, Terrietta interrupted them and declared that he was joining her research club. Terrietta was glad when Laius recognized her. She thought the royal family was interested in her research. But he just warned Haruto to avoid her lab as her research was fruitless, and she argued a lot with other teachers. Terrietta wanted to fight with Laius after hearing his words, and they continued to argue over who Haruto would be joining, and even Marion refused to back down. At the same time, Irisfilia also arrived. Terrietta thought she would also try to recruit Haruto, but she didn't respond while looking hesitant to speak, so Haruto realized that they needed to talk in private, and he used this to escape from the three. Marion panicked as she asked Laius what Haruto's relationship with Irisfilia was, while Terrietta screamed that she wouldn't give up on recruiting Haruto. Haruto apologized for dragging Irisfilia away before asking what she wanted to talk about. First, she asked if he was the same person from the previous day. She could tell the difference between Haruto and his clone, as she could see that his clone didn't have any mana, and she could also sense his barrier magic. Because of the way she sees his mana, Haruto asked if she was a demon. Iris was tense after hearing his question, and she asked if he looked like one. But Haruto said no, so she sighed in relief. She told Haruto that she was a human, while Haruto asked her to assume that his clone from the previous day and him were just the same person. Afterwards, Iris apologized for dragging him into the mess with Schneider before thanking him for his protection. And lastly, she asked Haruto if they could become friends. Haruto was shocked by her question, but she was already thanking him for agreeing, so Haruto had to interrupt her and ask why she chose to befriend him. Iris thought it was fate that they met multiple times. Haruto agreed, but he asked if she didn't have any other friends. Iris explained that she had been abandoned 4 times when she was a kid, and when she was taken in by a monastery, she got mistreated. And the priest, who was the only person nice to her, died when she was 5 years old. Because of this, she didn't interact with people around her, which caused her to lack common sense. And she came to Haruto to learn how to make friends. Haruto told her that she came to the wrong person, as he also doesn't have friends since he was a shut-in and also lacks common sense. However, she thought that it was actually perfect, as they were similar in some ways, and she suggested learning common sense together. Haruto imagined how normal friends interact, and he thought it would be fine to befriend her if he could use her to get himself out of hassles in school. Afterwards, he asked where she decided to enroll. She said that it was a research lab for ancient magic. He couldn't believe that it was Tirietta's lab, but he thought that he just had to suck it up. Iris rejoiced when he decided to join the same lab, and she thanked him for still deciding to be friends with her. Haruto blushed after seeing her smile. He thought it could even rival Char's. Then he remembered that he still doesn't know her name, so he introduced himself before asking for her name. At the same time, Char, Flay, and Lisa were enjoying the outdoor bath. Char was sulking that she didn't have much time to play with Haruto since he started going to school, while Flay was still upset that she couldn't stay by his side. However, Char suddenly had a feeling that something interesting had happened with Haruto, so she decided to visit him. But Flay started sulking as she wasn't allowed to come to his school, unlike Char, since she'd likely screwed things up. But since she couldn't do anything about it, she decided to just enjoy the bath, and Lisa couldn't believe how fast her mood could change. She was also amazed that Flay took her role as Haruto's servant so seriously compared to her, who used to hate serving other people, which was the reason she used to be alone. Flay blushed at her praise, then explained that her old job was to gather all the demons near the Demon King. Lisa was surprised that Flay was a sworn ally of the Demon King. Flay explained that he was a kind soul who always put demons and monsters first. But his kindness led to disagreements with other demons on how to treat humans, so Flay had to step in often. The Demon King wanted the demons and humans to coexist, and Flay thought that he planned on losing to the Fash Princess all along, as aside from sacrificing himself so the other demons had time to escape, he also planned to reincarnate as a human. Lisa asked if he changed into a human to try to change their attitude from within. Flay affirmed this, but she thought that he was unlucky to be reborn from the womb of the Flash Princess, who had killed him with her own hands. Then Flay said that she almost called Haruto his previous name out of surprise when they first met. Hearing this, Lisa got curious what was the Demon King's name. Flay reminded her not to carelessly say it before saying that it was Iris. At the same time, Iris told Haruto her name. He thought it was long, so he decided to call him Iris instead, and Iris couldn't help but laugh as she used to shorten names as well. Afterwards, Haruto wanted to leave, but Iris insisted that they sign up for their classes together, so Haruto invited her to his room. Haruto blushed when he realized that he was actually bringing a girl to his room, but he couldn't turn her away anymore as it would be weird, so he decided to just get everything over quickly. However, Char was waiting inside, and she was shocked when she thought that Haruto had brought his lover back, so Haruto had to interrupt her to say that she was just a friend. Char was impressed that Haruto had already made a friend, so she thought that it would be easy for him to get some lovers as well, and she thought she had to fully prepare herself if she really planned to become his second wife. Haruto thought it was normal for little kids, so he just let her do whatever she wanted, while Iris wondered if it was a normal conversation between siblings. After introducing Char and Iris to each other, Haruto and Iris started signing up for their classes, but it didn't take him long to get bored, so he asked Char to pick classes that suited him. Char happily did it, and she finished it in no time. But Iris was surprised that he didn't even check what Char wrote, so Haruto explained that there shouldn't be any problem since it was Char who had picked for him, and Char blushed after seeing that he trusted her so much. Afterwards, Iris asked if Haruto was trying to accomplish something since he had come to the academy, But Char explained that his goals were outside of academics, and she told her that she couldn't say it even to a friend. Then she told Iris that the assumption that Haruto was at the academy to learn was a mistake, and she declared that Haruto had already transcended such conventions. Because of this, Iris thought that he was really incredible, while Haruto thought that he should send Char back to prevent her from causing more havoc. But he was surprised when Char told him that she had accomplished her goal for visiting him and was going back. After Char bid her farewell, Haruto had to cover Iris' eyes to prevent her from seeing the teleportation door. Although she heard a door open before Char disappeared, Haruto told her not to sweat the details, so they focused on finishing their sign-up for classes. After waking up, Char explained that Haruto had been assigned to Class C based on his entrance exam results, but she thought that he would be moved to Class A right away after the regular evaluations, although Haruto didn't like the idea. Afterwards, Haruto noticed that all his classes were difficult and were usually taken by seniors, so Char explained that she didn't pick classes that would be too easy for him and get himself kicked out. Then he immediately left for his class, but Char stopped him as she asked for a hug before letting him go, and she even hugged him tighter when he complained about how long she was hugging him. Haruto and Lisa were greeted by Iris after coming out of his dorm. Iris seemed to notice that Lisa was a dragon, but she thought it made sense since she was Haruto's attendant, so she just happily introduced herself to her. Iris couldn't believe that Haruto was just in Class C, but she thought he would be promoted to Class A in no time. Lisa asked Haruto if Iris was really a human. She still couldn't tell if she was a human or a demon. Haruto wasn't sure either, but since it didn't matter to him, he decided to set it aside. Because of what happened with Schneider, everyone's attention in Class C was on Haruto. After everyone had settled on their seat, the professor explained that Class C is equivalent to average, so they could either go up or down based on their evaluations, and he immediately gave them another test. Haruto was excited that he had already gotten his chance. However, he was surprised at how easy the exam was, as Char learned it during her first 6 months of lessons. He thought it was too easy, and it would be obvious that he was rigging his exams if he did badly, so he decided to score 60 points. However, it was revealed that the average score for Class C would be 20, while Class B would average 50. Haruto's classmates knew about this, but he had no idea about it at all, and since he got 60 points, the professor and his classmates were totally impressed. Haruto couldn't understand what was going on, but he realized that the questions weren't really easy. It was just that Char was too much of a genius. However, it was too late, as the professor had already declared that he would be promoted to Class A starting with his next lesson, and Haruto was totally depressed after hearing this. Haruto saw both Iris and Leia, who introduced herself as Oratoria Velchem. Haruto thought that she looked really strict, and it was confirmed when she lectured them for chatting in the front row while in her class and warned them that she would throw them out if they failed to answer her questions. And because Iris and Haruto joined Terietta's research lab, she declared that she would give them a harder time. Oratoria told them that their lesson for the day was about main attributes, secondary attributes, and how they were put in numbers. She asked Iris to touch the crystal ball in front of the class, and she was impressed that Iris had all the attributes. However, Iris's level was only 5, so she thought it was too low, but she invited Iris to join her research lab, offering to train her thoroughly, but she sternly refused. Afterwards, Oratoria started explaining the results shown on the crystal ball. She told the class that Iris's main attribute was chaos, and it was at 100, while the rest of the attributes were secondary, and research is still ongoing to address it, but it is difficult. Haruto wondered if it was really difficult, as his advanced magic measuring showed the numbers right away when he used it on Iris. At the same time, Oratoria explained that secondary attributes were difficult to measure because a person could use the attribute more effectively depending on the way they use it. And she immediately asked Laius about it. Laius told her that it was because of proficiency. He thought that if a person kept on using it in a specific way, they would get more used to it. Oratoria thought that his answer was sensible, but she told him that it was already disproven by research. Hearing this, Haruto thought that it was because of the hidden attributes instead. Oratoria was surprised. She immediately asked Haruto to repeat his answer. Haruto could see some strange words written on his advanced magic measuring, and he only told Char and the others about them. Oratoria forced him to answer, so he explained that hidden attributes were attached to each of the attributes, and if a person has the word enhancement attached to his fire attribute, it would mean that his enhancing spell would be more effective. Oratoria was surprised that he knew about this, as it was included in Wise Owl's latest research. She explained that a few years ago, Wise Owl started sending research papers irregularly, and all of its contents are ahead by a few generations compared to their own research, and it included the invisible attributes that Haruto mentioned. She couldn't understand how Haruto found out about it, as they even kept it from the royal family. However, she thought Haruto was really talented, and she invited him to join her lab. Haruto refused, while Iris reminded her that recruiting students during the class was prohibited. But Oratoria didn't care, and she tried recruiting Iris as well. Afterwards, she thought Haruto might be Wise Owl. Haruto denied it, but he realized that it was Char. Tirieta and Polkos rejoiced when Haruto and Iris finally joined them, as their lab could keep going until they graduated, foretelling the two to make themselves comfortable. It was revealed that Haruto had asked his clone to take over for the day, and since he had already handed in his application, Haruto wanted to return home. However, Polko's scream echoed through the room, so Tirieta asked them to come with her to check on his situation. Tirieta explained that Schneider had asked her to do something about the vice attached to his shoulder. Tirieta thought they could use him to research ancient magic. She immediately asked Iris to check his arm. Iris realized that something seemed attached to his shoulder. Tirieta explained that every time healing magic was used on him, the cylinders attached to his shoulder pulled against each other and grinded his shoulder. However, anything not living just passes through the object, so she asked Iris what she thought it was. Iris answered that it was attributeless magic, and Tirieta was impressed. Then she explained that it was a barrier created with attributeless magic. Haruto was surprised that she knew, but he thought it was impossible that she figured that Haruto did it. At the same time, Tirieta asked him the difference between modern and ancient magic. He told her that ancient magic existed long ago, so Tirieta gave him a disappointed sigh before asking Iris instead. Iris explained that ancient magic is not restricted by attributes, and Tirieta added that some of its spells don't use magic energy, while modern magic's energy wouldn't even last for 12 hours. And since the barrier attached to Schneidel's shoulder had already lasted for over a day, it was ancient magic. Iris was surprised that someone could still use ancient magic, but Tirieta was still unsure since only a person above level 80 can use it. Iris declared that it wasn't her, and Tirieta could tell that she wasn't lying. And to find out who really did it, she woke up Schneider with multiple slaps. He tried to threaten her with his status, but Tirieta didn't care, and she just told her that she couldn't remove the spell, so he would have to tell them who cast it as he was the only person who could remove it. Schneider told her that he didn't know who it was since the person was clad in black and had a strange voice. However, Tirieta could already tell who it was based on this little information. She asked Haruto about the ally of justice in Zenfi's territory. She could tell that he showed up in the capital the same time Haruto moved there. Haruto tried to deny his involvement, but she was still planning. Haruto still said that he didn't know, but Tirieta only got excited to find out what he was hiding. At first, she just suspected that he was hiding his knowledge about ancient magic, but later on, she even thought that Haruto was actually the person clad in black, and she told him to spill everything with a threatening tone. Haruto started to panic, and he asked Haruto to save him. Haruto showed up right away, and he introduced himself as Schwa, the ally of justice. Because of the timing, Haruto realized that he had been watching from the start, and he was pissed about it. Schwa called Tirieta a midget, and he told her that he wasn't related to Haruto, and that he was only in the capital to punish evil. Tirieta was excited to meet him, but she asked if he knew that Schneider was really part of a suspicious organization. Schneider was surprised that she knew, while Haruto was surprised that an evil organization actually existed. But she told Tirieta that she knew about it before telling Schneider that he would remove his restraint the next morning if he cancelled the duel. Schneider helplessly agreed, so Haruto decided to leave. However, Tirieta used her magic to restrain him. She was happy with this outcome, and she told Haruto that she would only release him after he answered all of her questions. But Haruto broke the restraint easily, and he restricted her movements as payback. Polkos immediately asked her to apologize, but she didn't listen at all. She still wanted Haruto to answer her questions, and she even offered her virginity in exchange. Polkos panicked and called her an idiot. However, she finally apologized when she needed to use the toilet. Tia led the toast to celebrate Iris and Haruto's arrival at the research lab. However, Haruto noticed that Porco's attention was glued to him, so he asked if there was something wrong. Porcos explained that he felt similar to Haruto, as they were both getting caught up in stuff. Haruto was curious why he was always with Tia, so he explained that he used to be her tutor. However, she was a genius, so he barely needed to teach her anything, and after succeeding in various experiments, they ran out of things to do at home, so she entered the academy, and he was asked to watch over her. After entering the academy, she developed several new spells, and she was said to be the closest to getting the highest title in modern magic, which was a sage. However, Porcos was upset that she chose to study ancient magic, a lost magic of which no one's even sure if it would be useful. Haruto tried to console him, saying that geniuses think in a different way compared to them. But Porcos got even more depressed, so the atmosphere became awkward. At the same time, Iris came to him, already drunk. She poured some liquor for him, insisting that they drink together, but she drank it herself anyway. She thanked Haruto for joining the research lab with her, and she thought she could get stronger in the lab. But she fell asleep before she could finish her sentence. After tucking Iris to sleep, Haruto had to deal with Tia next. She asked if he was having fun before asking if he knew why Iris was interested in ancient magic. She explained that it was rare and impressive that Iris had control over all the attributes, but unfortunately, her level was only 5 out of 35, which was too low even for her age. And there was even a chance that it wouldn't increase anymore, so she had to rely on ancient magic, since it existed during the times when most people were at level 100 or above. She thought studying it would give her a clue to increasing a person's level, while Tia was excited to research a field that was completely new to her. She thought it was wonderful to chase down any leads, even with the smallest possibility. But she fell asleep after saying this, and he was the only one left awake, as even Porcos was already sleeping. At the same time, Schneider was enraged that he had to withdraw from the duel, as it would dishonor his family, and all his efforts and plans to make his father the next king would go to waste. He called for his family's assassination squad and ordered them to kill Haruto and everyone in the research lab. He had no idea that Haruto was observing and recording his actions. After checking if Haruto and the others were still sleeping, the assassins set up soundproofing and detection spells around the area before making their move. The assassins rushed towards the building, but one of them broke his nose after crashing face first into the barrier. They realized that the whole building was surrounded by the barrier, so they had no choice but to break it. However, it didn't even budge when they tried to stab it. They were surprised when the door suddenly appeared, but Schneider told one of the assassins about Schwa, so he knew he was responsible for this strange magic, and he ordered the other assassins to proceed with caution. But the assassin who opened the door was dragged inside without a chance to resist. And it also happened to the other assassins. After some time, the doors were opened by Haruto, and the assassins didn't hesitate to attack after seeing him. More doors opened, and Haruto appeared in all of them. However, after removing the mask of one of them, the assassins realized that they were attacking their companions, who were disguised by Haruto, while the real Haruto was above them, observing everything. The assassin captain immediately tried to attack him, but his spell was cancelled, and his movements were sealed by Haruto. He was planning to make the captain cough up all the information he had. Haruto confronted Schneider while bringing all the assassins he had captured. Schneider still tried to deny that he was responsible for the assassin, so Haruto showed him the recording when he ordered the assassins himself. Schneider was confused about how Haruto's magic managed to record the past, but Haruto didn't care about his reaction, and he thought that his previous punishment wasn't enough since Schneider still tried to assassinate him. He asked Schneider if he wanted to experience true pain. Schneider was afraid for his life, and he immediately injected something into his arm, which transformed him into a gigantic monster. He thought Schneider's transformation was so anime-ish. Schneider immediately punched him. Although he was thrown out of the window, he landed safely, totally scot-free. Haruto was certain that the syringe caused the transformation, but he didn't know what he should do with him, and he wished he could just leave, pretending that he didn't see anything. However, he suddenly received a call from Char. He told her that she should be sleeping, but she told him that she had a feeling that he was on duty, so she woke up. Haruto explained how Schneider had transformed into a monster, so Char asked him to save Schneider. Haruto wanted to refuse, but he couldn't do it after seeing Char's sad expression, so he thought he didn't have a choice, and Char rejoiced because of this. Haruto was thrown away after blocking the monster's fist, so he thought that it was even stronger than Gigan and it was also durable enough to endure his punch. Haruto decided to use his barrier to restrict its arms and keep it in place, but the monster intentionally discarded its arms before regenerating a new pair. Haruto didn't know what he should do because of this. However, Char noticed that the monster had shrunk after regenerating, so Haruto realized that Schneider might return to his original form if he cut off the monster's overgrown parts. After praising Char, Haruto summoned all kinds of swords and a toy hammer from the sky. Char was excited after seeing his new technique, But Haruto didn't wait further and showered the monster with the swords to cut off its flesh, and the toy hammer landed on Schneidel's head when he was back in his human form. Afterwards, Haruto thanked Char for her help. Although she was confused by the light that Haruto used to censor Schneidel's private parts, she was satisfied watching the battle, and she went to sleep after saying goodnight to Haruto. Afterwards, Haruto wanted to continue interrogating Schneidel, but he started running away on all fours, and Haruto thought that he wouldn't be able to get anything out of him in his current state. He decided to just retrieve the syringe Schneidel used and examine it instead. He felt exhausted because of the battle, but he thought he had to fix the mansion first before he could go to sleep. After waking up, Haruto went to the window to watch the sky. He told Haruto that he actually had fun while spending the day with Iris and the others. Haruto agreed, but he asked if Haruto really thought it was fun even when he was in a rough spot earlier in the day, and he called Haruto a tsundere because of this. Haruto refuted that their current life is definitely better than the previous one. Haruto agreed, and he thought that even though they were still shut-ins, they didn't hate getting involved with other people anymore. Then he told Haruto to just stay in the lab for the night before praising him for doing a good job. The next day, Flay and Lisa started investigating in the capital, but since they were asking an old man with hearing problems, they couldn't get any proper response. The group of thugs offered to answer their questions without hiding their intention to take advantage of them. But as expected, they were beaten by Flay, and they agreed to answer all of Lisa's questions. During their meeting, Flay and Lisa informed the group that the king and queen were on bad terms while the nobles were making their moves. Char concluded that danger was quickly approaching the capital, while Johnny thought the opponent had already made their move because of Haruto's battle against Schneidel, and he asked Char to show them the clips again. Although they couldn't understand the light that Haruto used for the censorship, they all agreed that he was really powerful and amazing. Only Lisa realized that they had started to go off topic. Afterwards, Char told them that since Schneidel was the student vice president, he should be part of a dark student council. She also thought that they started to make their moves because they noticed Haruto's power. And lastly, she concluded that the dark student council was just under a large evil organization that was trying to shake up the capital. Although they were confident that it would be easy for Haruto to handle the organization, Char thought that it was a hindrance that their location was hidden, so she decided to make their move. Infiltrate the academy, gather information, and expose everyone connected to the organization. And Char decided to call their group Camelot, and their purpose was to become Haruto's support. Haruto was troubled that their plan had progressed as far as infiltrating the academy. He couldn't deny anymore that the evil organization actually existed since Tia had also mentioned it, and he was certain that the queen was also involved in it. So he thought that he should watch over Char and everyone to ensure their safety, and it was all for his peaceful and safe hold-up life. Thank you all for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this series as much as I did, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on any new series recaps coming out on this channel.